All right, welcome back to Morning Express, and our focus this morning is on the maritime sector. Now, 90% of Kenya's international trade is carried out on ships, with most of the goods either uninsured or insured by foreign insurance companies. But as we speak, on the 17th of January this month, Kenya will be implementing the marine cargo policy that provides a framework for insurance of goods in transit from maritime risks. And with us in studio to expound more on this policy is the Principal Secretary, State Department of Shipping, Nancy Karigithu. Many thanks for joining us in studio.
Thank you.
Right now, Nancy, when we were speaking, you tell me that this law was passed in 1987, the policy rather.
Yes, it was.
Right, and it's being implemented in January 2017.
Yes, we're talking of the Insurance Act.
The Insurance Act.
Section 20 of the Insurance Act that provides for all Kenyan insurance business to be undertaken by Kenyan registered insurance companies. But that includes, therefore, the marine component of insurance business.
Right.
Yeah, it was enacted in 1987, but the Commissioner of Insurance Regulatory Authority has powers to exempt, to give exemptions. And basically, the section has not been implemented. So it's one of the initiatives that we've taken up as the new Department of Shipping and Maritime Affairs. Yes.
And I understand. I mean, the very fact that many goods right now are insured by foreign insurance companies, I understand, has seen Kenya lose about 2.5 billion shillings annually to these foreign insurance companies. How will this new policy benefit Kenyans?
Okay, we're looking at it as a potential income for this country because this is Kenyan business. If you buy goods abroad, you've used Kenyan money, and therefore it's in national interest to protect it. And therefore, we're looking at it as an opportunity to deepen the insurance sector in much the same way that the banking sector has been very strong. And this is very good for the economy in terms of creating strong institutions, creating jobs availability, particularly for the youth. When you grow strong institutions, then you're talking of creating more business. And that's what we are looking at. And also for a common understanding that we are in this as a country and it's in our interest then to develop. Now, when you think of 92% of our international business carried on ships, we do not have ships. We want to develop the maritime sector. And therefore, policy direction that leads towards improving our participation in the maritime sector can only be a good thing. And we're looking at this in that perspective.
So you're bringing in the issue of partnerships as well into the country. But let's talk about the fact that, you know, there's been a lot of issues when it comes to contraband goods and whatnot. Is this policy going to help curb such issues?
Now, we're looking at the insurance sector bringing in a new level of risk management because you realize that the maritime sector is not a very well known, not a very well understood sector. Yet, it impacts, when you talk of it carrying or interacting in terms of transport with 92% of our foreign trade, international trade, you're talking of from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics report for last year, talking of 1.7 trillion metric tons. That's a lot of money. And you know that trade and transport impact on freight. It also impacts on the economy because how well we perform in terms of logistics, in terms of transport, then impacts on freight, which has a trickle-down effect on the value of consumer goods to the final consumer. So if we talk of then bringing in a level of risk management that reduces regulatory functions in terms of protection of revenue, in terms of, let's say, the customs department, putting in different layers of protection. And that's why we're looking at the insurance being a big partner in risk management in terms of interdicting fraud, in terms of also helping reduce dumping, because it's a new layer of information. If you look at the way insurance business is conducted, insurance bring in a level of expertise, bring in a level, because they have an interest in reducing losses.
Right.
So their information and data is very systematic. And they also have an interest, a very, very good incentive to bring awareness, to collect information. And we are looking at all that as being a very efficient layer of risk management.
Right.
And therefore being able to reduce the kind of interventions we have to put as customs, as business regulatory bodies, so that we are able then to concentrate on trade facilitation and not protection of revenue.
And I was going to bring in the Kenya Revenue Authority, because it has also had a lot of finger pointing when it comes to issues of contraband. You know, how did KRA miss this? And you know, this is some of the issues. I mean, this law, this policy rather, and bringing in insurance is going to help KRA focus on what they are doing.
That's the way we're looking at it. So we're not looking at it not just in terms of the money, you know, in terms of the copious amount we are going to solve, but also in terms of bringing in efficiencies, which therefore, of course, enable the businessman to expand his business, more money for the country, more business and more jobs.
So it's also going to encourage, of course, Kenyans to take more risks, because they're assured of compensation.
Yes, and also if you look at the foreign insurance, we've had cases where people walk into our offices, particularly when I was in the Kenya Maritime Authority, when there has been an incident, there's been loss, and they're bringing a policy that I can't understand because it's either written in Chinese or Japanese. But we're talking now of bringing a personal relationship between the businessman and his insurer. You can speak in English, you can speak in Swahili, you can negotiate in terms of premium payments, how to pay and when to pay. And then also in terms of claims management, you're dealing with somebody you know and you can relate to and you have a relationship with. And therefore, this can only be a good thing for this country. And also, we're talking about marine business now. It's coming, it's bringing more awareness in terms of the general populace, in terms of the way we do our business, because it's been this business that is known to very few people. It's got very specific terms and knowledge that the ordinary mwananchi don't understand. In fact, the joke has been said that because it's too complicated, we don't want to get involved or to learn, and we've left it to a small niche of people who then drive the sector. We've been doing our business on FOB, where FOB in this case means free of bother. I don't want to understand, it's too complicated. So I would rather leave it to somebody. And when you therefore bring in this risk management partner who is more ready to share information and to delve into the issues, to understand the sector, then it can only be a good thing for this country.
Absolutely. Let's delve into the fact that, like you mentioned, the maritime sector hasn't received that much attention. At least Kenyans don't know much about it. But it's one of the sectors, if anything, that should be most active in the country, considering issues of, import, trade, tourism, and whatnot. What challenges would you say the maritime sector is facing that, there's just not much awareness about it?
Okay, I would say that, or by the way, it's not a unique thing to Kenya, because you see, the maritime sector is this big mover of the economy, but does it so quietly. It's not well understood. There are not many incidents, in terms of disasters happening, as opposed to aviation. We don't interact so much in the maritime sector, except for the importers and the people who have to deal with clearance of goods in the port. Aviation, the policymakers use aeroplanes. When there's a delay in KQ, we all hear about it because it affected you and me, the minister, the high people in society, but not so in the maritime sector. We don't use ships for transport as people. We only... So therefore, it's not very much understood. And the business, what is the most critical issue is that a decision in one area has the trickle-down effect all the way to the goods on the supermarket shelf. But this is not very well understood because, for example, in terms of efficiencies, in terms of productivity, all that adds money to the goods on the shelf. But this won't be understood by the ordinary mwananchi. It's got specific terms, needs specific knowledge, because, for example, On the road, we'll talk of left and right. On the ships, you're talking of starboard side and port side.
Right.
And,
I mean,
people generally...
It's difficult to understand if you haven't studied for it and don't know the terms.
Yes.
But let's talk about the trickle effect for local insurance firms now.
Yes.
What does that mean for them?
What that means for them is that it's opening a new, well, let's say a new business arm as opposed to what is within locally. But it's also an opportunity, and I've told this to the insurance companies every time I have an opportunity, that to whom much is given, a lot more is expected.
Right.
So we expect a lot of professionalism, a lot of understanding, and a lot of education for them, not just within them, but also education to the consumers, so that we understand and we don't introduce, therefore, another level of mistrust between the insurers themselves and the insured public. So we expect a lot of professionalism. We're expecting a lot of digitalization, removing the human interface so that we reduce the space or we eliminate the space for possible fraud. We don't want to see that as a market. And that's the message we've been passing to them, that it's not just about the money. No, it's about working together and being professional and doing a good job and building this country.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So we don't want them to think of it as just this new pot of gold that has opened, because it's not really. No. And also we need to understand the other thing that hasn't come out or is not being talked about, that within Section 20 we have exemptions. And therefore, we need to understand that this is not like the third-party motor vehicle insurance, which is compulsory. We still have scope, and it's still open for the public to get exemptions from the IRA in terms of certain areas that are not yet covered, or it's not possible. And the way we've taken it, the approach we've taken, is that to avoid pain, because like I have said, every functionally and regulatory impact on the goods can introduce a non-tariff barrier and therefore an expense. Right. We've taken a phased-in approach after discussion within the stakeholder forum. So we are going to go incrementally. We're beginning with motor vehicles before we proceed to the bulk. And therefore... So it's going to be a progressive implementation beginning January 2017. Yeah, January 17th, rather. It's fast, 1st of January. It's just that, of course, you're talking of buying, but then also the transportation and arrival of the goods. Takes time. Thank you so much. Yes. Nancy Karigithu, Principal Secretary, State Department of Shipping and Maritime Affairs, speaking to us on the marine policy that has now been implemented, providing a framework for of course, policymakers, rather, providing a framework for Kenyans to insure their goods while in transit. And we take a short break here on Morning Express. We'll be back with a State of the Nation discussion, focus on the National Super Alliance. Don't go too far.